great question. And I'm going to answer it using a sample SAT reading passage comprehension question. Usually, when we're talking about this kind of thing, it's in the context of standardized test prep. So we'll use this one. So our question is, what are the best tips to be able to fully understand unfamiliar words better when it comes to context clues by reading a passage? So I want to talk about two different tips that I use, and I often use them in conjunction, so we'll use them together. The first tip is to look at the function of the word in the sentence or in the paragraph. So usually this comes in when you've got a passage and at some point you get a question like this one here, question 12. In line 10, the word ambivalent most nearly means what? And you've got four choices: unrealistic, conflicted, apprehensive, or supportive. So we want to look at what this word is doing functionally in the sentence or in the paragraph. The prep book that I usually use, one of the older editions, talked about this as whether the word goes with the flow or switches gears. And the idea that some words are there to kind of reinforce what's been said in the sentence, while other words are transitioning, changing directions, contrasting with what's been said in the sentence. So you can look for transition words, conjunctions, things like but, however, although. Those usually mean that what's on one side of that word is a contrast to what's on the other side of that word. Reinforcing words, things like even and more so, generally mean that this follows on from the previous thing. So that sentence kind of builds on itself. In this example, it's not in the sentence itself, it's in basically the whole paragraph, but the sentence and the two sentences following it are what we're going to look at. So the sentence itself that has this word in it, that's the first step. So this frequent experience of gift giving can engender ambivalent feelings in gift givers. Okay, this is a fairly straightforward statement. And then the two sentences after it reinforce by talking about what those feelings might be. And you can see as you read through it that these two sentences talk about two very different emotions. The first one is enjoying and relishing buying presents because it means building a stronger bond with someone. The second sentence means dreading the thought of buying gifts because they're worried the person won't enjoy it, that their purchases will disappoint rather than delight. So these are two very different emotions. And because we don't have any transition words, we have this at the same time here, which implies that these two things both follow on from that mystery word ambivalent. So these are two very different emotions that follow on from our mystery word. So this implies that whoever is having these ambivalent feelings is feeling both of these things at the same time, maybe, and you could imagine that being sort of conflicting. So just based on that, you might already be guessing that choice B, which says conflicted, would kind of indicate both of those emotions happening at once. The second tip that I want to talk about is dissecting the word itself to look for clues about its meaning. So this involves a little bit of prep, but you have to kind of familiarize yourself with various English language prefixes, suffixes, and roots, so that you can then pull apart a word and kind of figure out how it's been constructed. Figure out what pieces go into that word, and that gives you a clue about what the word means. So even if you don't actually know what the word means, you can often get pretty close. So let's take our target word, ambivalent. Now, ambi is a prefix, which means both. So think ambidextrous, right? Someone who's ambidextrous can do fine dexterity involved tasks with both sides of their body equally. Usually, writing equally with both sides. So ambi means both. The root of this word is vale, V-A-L-E. And vale as a root means strength or worth, depending on the context. So think words like valid, evaluate, valiant, right? All of those vowel sounds, that means strength or worth. And that's where the root comes from. So ambivalent literally translates to both worth. So in this case, you're thinking, okay, well, if you have ambivalent feelings, that means you recognize that both of these feelings have worth. And that's going to be kind of conflicting, right? You're holding both of these feelings that we've just talked about in the next two sentences at the same time, and understanding that both of them have value, right? So yeah, we're going to go with B, which is conflicted. And it can get you to the answer without necessarily actually knowing the dictionary definition of ambivalent. Which, by the way, does mean that you have mixed emotions, that you're feeling contradictory emotions at the same time. So those are my tips for pulling apart unfamiliar words to figure out what they mean. And I hope you found this informative. And let me know if you'd like one-on-one tutoring.